Last 4 years, the steel industry is the strongest. It's the strongest that it's been in years because of the actions that this president has done every day since day one to make sure that we protect that. And so the president believes that we need major U.S. companies representing major share of U.S. steel making capacity, and to keep leading that fight on behalf of America's national interest. And so that's why the president made this decision. He's always been very clear about that. We've always been very consistent about that. And so that's going to be our focus, continuing to be our focus, obviously.
Huge difference.
The president will be signing later this afternoon, as I said, upholds the promise of Title IX. It also will require the DOJ to abide by the nationwide previous administration's illegal Title IX rewrite that would have dissolved single-sex spaces and opportunities. It also requires immediate action, including enforcement actions against schools and athletic associations comprised of schools that deny women single-sex sports in single-sex locker rooms. The executive order also calls for the convening of private sporting bodies in the White House. We want them to come to this campus so the president can hear in person the stories of female athletes who have suffered lifelong injuries, who have been silenced and forced to shower with men and compete with men on athletic fields across the country. Many of those women will be at the White House today. I encourage all of you in the media to actually talk to them, to hear their stories. And I would also just add one more thing. This is a wildly popular position with the American people. In fact, there was a new poll recently that showed the overwhelming majority of Democrats also support keeping biological men out of women's sports. And so I know the president is very excited about the bill signing that will take place at 3 o'clock this afternoon. You will hear from him more on that later, and we look forward to seeing you there, Sage. So thank you very, very.
Look at the body posture on this one, and this is huge difference. I don't understand why.
The president said he spoke with families of the victims of the New Orleans attack. What did he tell them?
Look, I'm not going to get into private conversation that the president has had with families. We don't do that. Well, certainly if the families chooses to speak about their conversation with the president, obviously they have the right to do that. Our hearts certainly go out to the families who lost their loved ones on a day that should have been a celebrated day to such an act of violence. Obviously, this is something that we will continue to condone, but as I stated at the top, the president and the first lady are going to New Orleans in the upcoming days, and they're going to grieve with the family. And sadly, that is something that you have seen them do many times over the last 4 years. When an awful event happens, they are there, and they want to be there, especially at this magnitude. They want to be there and be with the family and mourn with the family. And so, again, this was certainly an awful event that happened on the day that we should have all been celebrating an incoming new year. And so our hearts go out to the families and also to the communities who are dealing with the aftermath of this tragedy.
I don't know how we went 4 years with this girl. Now look at this.
Very much. Garrett, great to see you here today.
Thank you. On Gaza, the president has spent basically his entire public career criticizing foreign entanglements, nation building, sending American troops to fight abroad, particularly in the Middle East. This plan seems like it could ultimately involve all of those things. Can you explain this reversal and how building and owning Gaza squares with America First foreign policy?
I would reject the premise of your question that this forces the United States to be entangled in conflicts abroad. The president has not committed to putting boots on the ground in Gaza. He has also said that the United States is not going to pay for the rebuilding of Gaza. His administration is going to work with our partners in the region to reconstruct this region. And let me just take a step back here, because this is an out-of-the-box idea. That's who President Trump is. That's why the American people elected him. And his goal is lasting peace in the Middle East for all people in the region. And as I said in my opening remarks, we've had the same people pushing the same solutions to this problem for decades. And it's been made very clear to the president that the United States needs to be involved in this rebuilding effort to ensure stability in the region for all people. But that does not mean boots on the ground in Gaza. It does not mean American taxpayers will be funding this effort. It means Donald Trump, who is the best deal maker on the planet, is going to strike a deal with our partners in the region.
Because he did not rule out American troops in Gaza last night. Are you doing that now?
I am saying that the president has not committed to that just yet. He has not made that commitment, and you know that.
And on the foreign partners, the Jordanians, the Egyptians, the Saudis have already panned this plan. What foreign partners, if any, have expressed any interest in being part of it?
Well, the president has said he's been socialing this idea for quite some time. He's been thinking about this. He said in his remarks last night, this was not a decision or an announcement that he takes lightly. And the president has already spoken to the President El-Sisi. In fact, that was his first foreign leader call. He's meeting with the King of Jordan, King Abdullah, next week. He spoke with the King of Bahrain. He spoke with the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. And he has made it very clear, he's been very vocal, that he expects our partners in the region, particularly Egypt and Jordan, to accept Palestinian refugees temporarily so that we can rebuild their home. I'd like to show you some images of Gaza that were taken. Fox News aired this. I mean, that is, as they put it, in an apocalyptic scene in Gaza. This is an uninhabitable place for human beings. Do you really think that families can live their dream in a region that looks like this, with no running water, no electricity? And the special envoy to the president, Steve Witkoff, recently traveled to Gaza, as you all know. And he came back with images that he showed the president of the dire situation here. And the president made this decision with a humanitarian heart for all people in the region.
As you can see, she calls everybody by their names. Let's see if this one does that.
And does the Vice President plan to oversee the certification of the election results on Monday?
I believe that is her plans. I would have to refer you to the Vice President's office on her schedule, but I believe
She can never answer a question. What she has to go around the bush.
so, yes.
Thanks, Karina. How does the attack in New Orleans and the explosion in Las Vegas increase concerns in the administration about security surrounding the certification of the vote, the Carter funeral next week here in Washington, the inauguration, and then even looking ahead to the Super Bowl next month in New Orleans?
So, look, all of the events that you just laid
Going around the bush again.
out is certainly a high priority for this administration. The Department of Homeland Security and federal law enforcement have well-established safety and security protocols in place, especially as we speak to the inauguration, obviously. And so they have been preparing for months to ensure that the security of these events and the safety of those attending them. So again, this is something that we've worked through for months now. And so we are working tirelessly every single day to ensure the safety and security of the inauguration, the safety and security of major events that you just laid out. It is important to the president that we continue to protect, as I said at the top, American communities across the country, and certainly that's what the president's gonna wants his team to focus on, and that's what they have been focusing on.
Suspects in
She didn't even call her by her name. Look at this.
Peter.
Thank you, Caroline. Are any officials here preparing to fight Democratic lawmakers in the streets?
Absolutely not.
So
And thanks for the question.
some elected Democrats are so steamed about Doge. Congresswoman LaMonica McIver says we are at war. Ilhan Omar says we might actually see somebody get killed. And Chris Van Hollen says we have to fight this in the Congress. We have to fight this in the streets. So what now?
And may I just point out, if you heard that type of violent, enticing rhetoric from our side of the aisle, from Republican leaders on Capitol Hill, I think there would be a lot more outrage in this room today. It's unacceptable, the comments that have been made by these Democrat leaders, and frankly, they don't even know what they're talking about. Because President Trump was elected with a mandate from the American people to make this government more efficient. He campaigned across this country with Elon Musk, vowing that Elon was going to head up the Department of Government Efficiency, and the two of them, with a great team around them, were going to look at the receipts of this federal government and ensure it's accountable to American taxpayers. That's all that is happening here. And for Democrat officials to incite violence and encourage Americans to take to the streets is incredibly alarming, and they should be held accountable for that rhetoric.
It sounds
Wow, so great, Karoline. Great.